Everyone. Tonight's show is all about how we are about to subsidise some of the richest corporations on the planet so that they could be able to dump their crap on some of the poorest, most vulnerable people on the earth and call it charity. If we were Carlton Television, we would be calling the show Capitalists from Hell. Because that's what Carlton do. They're builders from hell, you know, drivers from hell, Satanists from... No, think that through. And this show's about drug dumping. This is about dumping of useless drugs and pharmaceuticals in developing world countries, normally in the middle of a crisis. And we phoned these doctors in Malawi. We said, have you ever had any inappropriate donations, useless donations? I said, oh, yeah. I said, what's your favourite or what's the weirdest one? She said, we were sent a box full of these. I said, what are these? They said, we had about 30 of them. They're 300 quid a go. We were sent silicone breast implants. Silicone breast implants to Malawi. Not top priority for that particular health service. And I said, did you find any use for them? They said, oh, yeah. I said, what? They said, paperweights. But if you're a pharmaceutical company and your stock is coming up to its sell-by date, or they're past their use-by date but not up to the expiry date, so they're short-dated, or your competitors are just beating you in sales and all this stuff is clogging up your warehouses, you can donate it to a charity who will dump it in the developing world for you, rather than the other option, which is you incinerate it in a regulated and controlled way, which will cost you some money. This way you save your money, you clear your warehouses, you get your old stock out of the way. And I forgot to mention, this process might be just kind of nudged along by the fact that American pharmaceutical companies get a tax deduction for this. And we're about to get similar laws in Britain. This process has led to such edifying drug donations as appetite stimulants, crates of them dumped in Sudan in the middle of a famine. How the fuck can you do that? Eritrea in '89, 6 fucking truckloads of expired aspirin. Rwanda in '94, they dumped masses of odourless garlic pills. Handy in a genocide where halitosis is a problem. In Kosovo, as refugees fled from the bombing and the massacres, coming into Albania, they had 10 tons of depilatory cream and hemorrhoid cream dumped. In Gujarat, 2001, 20,000 people died in the earthquake, and one company, they donated bikinis. How low on your list of must-haves is a bikini when you're a homeless victim of a fucking earthquake? That's got to come after smoke alarm, dough balls and lawnmower. You see, this stuff is fucking dangerous. These are drugs. In Lithuania, 11 women were temporarily blinded because the doctors had been sent stuff that was in an inappropriate language. They couldn't read what the tablets were, and they prescribed dog deworming tablets. In Bosnia, anti-leprosy pills were labelled paracetamol. Decongestants were 3 years out of date and had the expiry date falsely covered up. We spoke to a guy called Professor Truchillo, who works for Pharmacists Sans Frontier, who was out there, and he said, my job was to help clear up the dumped pharmaceuticals.
At least there were 300 or 400 tons of non-usable drugs.
300 to 400 tons?
Yes, sure.
So if this was in Mostar?
That was only Mostar.
So we're talking possibly about thousands of tons?
Of the order of 1,000 or 1,500 tons in Bosnia easily.
He said they had to get steel bins, mix the drugs in with cement and lime, weld the lids on and bury them in landfill. It cost them about 100 grand to do that in Mostar. In other parts of Bosnia, there were so many drugs dumped, they had to build an incinerator that cost them $34 million. After Bosnia, they said, we're going to bring in the World Health Authority and the World Health Organization are going to work with all these aid agencies. We're going to introduce guidelines for appropriate drug donations. No expired stuff. Everything's got to have at least a year's shelf life on it. It has to be in the right language. It has to be a generic, not a brand name. It has to be wanted. The country has to produce an essential drugs register, which those drugs have to be on.
Would you say that would be helpful in preventing the kind of bad donation that you yourself witnessed?
It's not that it would help. It is that it's an obligation. It's absolutely necessary, indeed.
Spoke to a woman who was out in Tirana, in Albania, in 1999. She was working as a pharmacist. She said, let me show you some photographs. The first one is outside a hospital in Albania. All those packages there are the unwanted, useless drugs that were sent to them, that were of absolutely no use. She said, we were literally collecting buckets of drugs that were useless. At another point, they found these, which were nitrous oxide, which is laughing gas, gas and air that women have when they're pregnant or is used in anaesthetics. This is 1999. The expiry date, 490. Nearly 10 years out of date. 10 years out of date. This is laughing gas. This is the equivalent of fucking Jimmy Tarbuck material. And she said, I want to show you this photograph. This photograph is how many drugs we found that we could use. That was the total amount of useful drugs in that hospital in Tirana. We thought, well, we need to look at this stuff. We need to look at their guidelines. If we're getting these laws in our country, we need to have the World Health Organization guidelines in the legislation. So anything that's donated outside of that, you can't claim the tax money back. And if you try, you'll be done for tax fraud and we'll slap you. Seems fair. We then found out that there was a small meeting in London of people working in pharmaceutical industries and doctors and people working in various developing world countries, and we turned up and I asked them a little question about whether they thought the World Health Organization guidelines should be included.
What I'd like to ask is, to all the people in the room as well as to the people on the panel, is there anyone here who can find a reason why the World Health Organization code on donations shouldn't be included in legislation so that we could actually get the appropriate donations arriving at the appropriate places?
I think we've got to take that silence as a yes, they should be included, Mark. And what was quite nice was after they came out of the meeting, we had this stall set up outside and had these T-shirts printed up, and as they came out, I gave them a T-shirt, and some of the T-shirts said, just say no to drug dumping, which I thought was quite snappy. And one of them said, I'm against inappropriate corporate donations, which was less snappy. Could I give you one of those?
Oh, I mean, pleasure.
This is an inappropriate donation. This is an inappropriate gift for you to remind you of that.
Very good.
Like, this is completely useless to anyone. So we included this useless gift just to remind you of how useless inappropriate donations can be. And do you want Batman? As you can have Batman.
No, you can have Batman. Yeah, definitely. I have young children. I can.
Then I'll take the
Oh
other
no, but
one.
that's useful. I can't give you something useful. No, one bloke. He worked for the drug companies. I tried to give him a little elephant.
I appreciate it very much, but I actually want fully packed, so I'm going to...
No, in
Thank you
that
very
case,
much.
you get the fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
You're getting the fridge.
Right into the
No,
taxi.
I'm going to take the fridge. The World Health Organization do internal reports about drug dumping, but they're internal reports. You're not allowed to see them. They aren't made available to the public, normally. We found one just lying around. And in it, they said, donations largely conspicuous by their size and unhelpfulness. And this was a survey done in Albania in 1999. One of the companies that they found was a company called American Home Products, who donated short-dated painkillers to a hospital in Tirana via an American charity called Americares. Great name. Wyeth, this is the name of American Home Products, changed their name to Wyeth. I thought, Wyeth, they've got a British UK headquarters down in Slough. I remember this. And I thought, if they like donations so much, we should donate to Wyeth.
delivery main office?
Mark Thomas, Channel 4, I've got a delivery for you here.
It's actually £3,000 worth of small change, nearly $500,000 nickels and cents and all this kind of crap. Just dumped it there, and they said, "There you are, that's yours."
I know that wife donated a whole load of stuff to Albania, right, when it was American Home, and the thing was, it was short-dated, which is all right, but the point is you know what it's like, sometimes donations can be burdensome, can't they? That's what it appears to be. Our donation isn't welcome here, is it?
We would just ask you to take all your stuff.
So our donation isn't
properly, then take us through the proper channels, and you can phone us and we'll talk to you.
So basically, you're saying take your donation and go because this donation is unwanted.
We don't want this here on our site.
Now, when we talked to Wyeth, they said they're not going to reply to our letters, but Americares will reply on their behalf. Americares said, "Look, we've not broken the WHO guidelines." Because there's an exemption bit where if you get permission from the government you're donating to, you can give them short-dated drugs. And the Albanians were told they were going to get this stuff, and they agreed to have it. They also told us the law, basically, on donations.
I think you have to understand that for people in distress who receive a donation, it is very difficult to say no. For two reasons. One, because you can seem that you don't appreciate what people, maybe in good faith, maybe with not such a good faith, is donating. The second reason is because they can fear that in another opportunity they will not get anything at all.
We found this company called Bristol Myers Squibb, who we wanted to look at, not just because they got a funny third name, but, although that was part of the reason. The thing was, there's a couple of other ways of getting money back, right, of claiming money. If you sell a drug and it is below the price you would normally charge for it, you can get a bargain sale tax deduction. And you can, even if you sell below cost, you could nudge up into profit on this stuff. Now, the interesting thing about Bristol Myers Squibb is, can we have a look at their mission statement? Can you look at this? We pledge Bristol Myers Squibb to the highest standard of moral and ethical behaviour and to policies and practices that fully embody the responsibility, integrity and decency required of free enterprise if it is to merit and maintain the confidence of our society. Well, there we go. And so that's what they say. Now, the thing is, they sell two drugs, Zeret and Videx, and they are antiretroviral drugs used in combination therapy to combat AIDS, right? They sell it in sub-Saharan Africa at $1 per patient, per treatment, per day. We thought, OK, and they say we are selling that below cost. When they want to sell it in Guatemala, they offer $2 per patient, per treatment, per day. And we thought, that's interesting. First of all, we got hold of some letters from Médecins Sans Frontières, who work in the developing world to try and create better health systems. Now, they were writing to Bristol Myers Squibb saying, we want to buy these drugs for Guatemala at $1.60 per patient, per treatment, per day. They said, $2 per patient, per treatment, per day, but we're not going to sell them to you. We're going to give them to you. You don't have to buy them. You merely have to pay an administration fee of $2 per patient, per treatment, per day, and we'll give you the drugs. And we thought, hello? Is this because, one, they either don't want to actually sell it at $2 and therefore create a precedent for selling in that region, or is it, two, because they wish to claim the sale as a donation and make some more money as a tax deduction? We thought, aye, this needs to be resolved. So we phoned up Bristol Myers Squibb, their head office, and there's a guy I needed to speak to called Bob Laverty. who's their corporate affairs. Every time I've phoned up so many times, it's like 30, 40 times. Every time, no, Bob's not here. I'm sorry, Bob's in a meeting at the moment. No, he can't help. Bob's gone away. Bob's touring at the moment. Bob's reformed the band. They're on the road. Bob dematerialized before our he's on the Starship Enterprise. Bob was eaten by crocodiles. Bob's been regurgitated, but is in a meeting. And eventually, I lost my temper and just went, look, I have phoned up over 30 times. This is a shoddy way to treat a respected journalist, because they don't know. So, Bob phoned back. Now listen, Mark, we're really glad that we caught up with you, because in your television program, it's really important that you hear the Bristol Mayor Squibb story, and that's part of your program. I'm going to get you talking on a conference call with me and another guy called Bob Laferb, who's been dealing those deals. He's been working in Secure the Future, a charity AIDS project out in Africa. We've been putting a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of time out there, and we need to talk about it. Bob came on, start asking the question. Go, you say you sell in sub-Saharan Africa $1 per patient per treatment per day, and you make a loss. That's right, Mark. We are making a loss on that sale. In Guatemala, when you do the $2 per patient per treatment per day, is still well below cost. That's correct, isn't it?
We've never stated that.
Well, can I ask you, is it below cost?
It is not. It is about an 83 to 85% reduction on the selling price presently that we are having on the commercial side in Guatemala.
I do appreciate that, but I wondered if it's possible whether you could tell me whether that is below cost or not.
No, I'm not going to. No, I can't
Okay.
tell you that. I can tell you it's an 85% reduction.
Okay. Now, he might not be able to comment on that because, you know, obviously they have a policy of not commenting on how much it costs to manufacture a drug. They might also be slightly embarrassed at the cost of the manufacturing drug, because it retails around $13 to $15. And if you buy a generic version of the drug, manufactured in somewhere like Brazil, the costs of manufacture are about 64 cents. Do the maths. If you're American, do the math. I said, are you going to claim a tax deduction on the Guatemala? No, Mark, we are not going to do that. What about in sub-Saharan Africa? That $1 per patient per treatment per day, are you claiming that's part of a bargain sale and getting a tax deduction on that? To the best of my knowledge, Mark, no. How much time do you spend with accountants, Bob? Oh, as little as possible. And suddenly the voice of corporate affairs goes, we're going to get back to you as soon as possible on that, Mark. I will get you an answer. They haven't yet. So, we haven't heard from you, Bob. Please, would you get in touch? We need to know. It's important to hear the Bristol Myers Squibb story. In fact, Bob, it's more important to hear the Bristol Myers Squibb story, and I agree with you. The Bristol Myers Squibb story is very important. What about that bit of the Bristol Myers Squibb story where actually you were the biggest donor to American political parties and representatives out of the entire pharmaceutical industry last year? In fact, Bristol Myers Squibb donated over $1 million. What about the rest of the Bristol Myers Squibb story where the former chief executive was paid $60 million last year in pay bonus share options? What about the bit of the Bristol Myers Squibb story where one of your former executives said, we first learned about the AIDS epidemic in Africa when we were flying over in a plane, and someone explained to me, and my first impulse was, my God, we've got to give drug. And then I thought, no, we can't do that. And sometimes I think, you know, have we done enough? And it's like that bit in Schindler's List at the end where Schindler says to his accountant, you know, have I done enough? I could have done more. And he says, look at the people you've saved. You've saved the future. And we feel that we're like Schindler's List. I think fucking not! Incredible. And so, but what we wanted to do, we thought, OK, they're not taking the donation in Guatemala. That's something to praise, but we need to find out. It's all about transparency. It's about information. If we're giving, this is our money. Remember, the tax break is our money we're giving to them. We need to know what the costs are. We need to know where the donations go. We need to know how they're claiming what they're claiming. So we thought we'd go along to their UK headquarters. I took a bunch of flowers just to say, well done on not taking the deal in Guatemala. And an inappropriate gift. Took a traffic cone. Gift wrapped. And we thought we're going to go down and politely ask these questions about openness and transparency. Their response was to call the police.
Felix, Thomas.
Hiya, how you doing?
I had a strange dream I was going to interview you at some point.
Did you really?
You're my worst nightmare, Thomas.
Yeah, I'm genuinely not.
How weird is that? I'm in a pharmaceutical office talking about drug donation, and the cop's going, "You're in my dream. You're like a digestive biscuit," and I was dunking you, but it was in breast milk, and then I thought of my mum, she was a light bulb, and she went out. But he was very sweet, and I explained what we were about, and I explained what we were doing, and he said, I'll hand the questions into them if you like. Won't guarantee an answer, but I can hand them the questions. So I wrote down the questions. We're still waiting for your answer. When you're ready. Maybe you and Bob can hook up. We'll do a conference call on it, and we'll get the Bristol-Myers Squibb story. So, you know that money we gave to Wyeth that they made us take back? Because Wyeth insisted we took it, we used the money to help publish this report on drug donations, corporate charity or taxpayer subsidy. The thing is, we thought we wanted to go round. We wanted to get to Gordon Brown, who's the person who's in charge of this law. So, with War on Want, we went to Downing Street to hand in a copy of the report and to do that photograph, everyone does in front of the door.
Do you want to get into?
So we went in there, and you have to go through the police scans, and they, through the bag detections and the metal detectors and the scanners and the frisks and all of this.
All right, okay. Hello there.
Hello there.
This is a report we've written with War on Want, and we'd like you to present that
Okay then.
to the Chancellor. It's on drug donations, it's on inappropriate donations.
Okay then.
And there is just one thing to accompany that, which is a small donation which goes with it, and this comes with the report to remind us of the inappropriateness of donations.
Okay then.
Thank you very much indeed for your help.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.
I know, it's a bit cheeky. What was brilliant is as we were walking past, I could hear the cops going, "How did you get that in?" Well, it's organic material, it didn't come up on a metal detector. So, what we'd like you to do is this. If you think the tax laws should be transparent, if you think there should be a register, if you think that our money should be only spent on quality, measured donations that are appropriate and which anything outside the WHO guidelines is not counted for tax deductions, we're asking you to send... Well, nearly everyone's got some kind of medical packaging in their home. The packets from, medicines and stuff like that. And the Royal Mail, actually, by law, has to take nearly anything that you put in the post. What we're asking you to do is just tape up the end of your packaging, put Gordon Brown's address on the front, stamp on, and send as much of it as possible to number 11 Downing Street. And when I say as much of it as possible, the dream is we will send so much that he will have to spend 34 million on an incinerator. Send it in, man. Send it in by the sackload, send it in by the truckload, because somewhere in the middle of that is his postcard from Tony Blair from Tuscany. And he's going to want that bit.
We're going for the dressing down of the laws that make us drag our feet. Into fiction goers, is that really all we need? People power in the disco hour. People power in the disco hour. People power in the disco hour. There's gonna